right, all right. I think that we are live. I'm just going to check my little feed right here and make sure that we are. Yes, we are. Oh, I'm so excited to be here today with my friend. She is a yoga instructor. She is a life coach. She is my soul sister. Tara, I'm so honored to have you here today and to have this conversation with you. I think it's such an important conversation. And I had reached out to Tara maybe a few weeks ago now. We had a really great conversation on the phone just around Christmas time. And we were talking about how to harness your intuition and really trust it, right? Trust where you're going. And so what I would love to hear is a bit about your story, a bit about, how all of this evolved, where you were before, how you grew up a little bit, and then maybe into, where that's brought you now and how that's changed your life.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you for this honor. I'm so happy to be here and so grateful for that inner spark that told you to reach out, right? So that's what it's all about. Exactly. That's the reason why we're here having this conversation. So thank you for that beautiful introduction. And so, to make this in a nutshell as much as possible. So growing up, I was outside most of the time. And I spent a lot of time with a bow and arrow in my hand and also a fishing rod. So in addition to many other activities outside, and what I didn't realize was my father teaching me to listen at a very young age, right? Because when we are shooting a bow and arrow, and just to be clear, never at animals, ever. ever. It was always a big cardboard box with a target, right? And we have to get quiet. We have to listen. We have to deepen our breath. We have to feel our feet. Same thing with a fly fishing rod, and it's very much, I don't know if you've ever tried fly fishing before, but it takes a lot of patience and it takes a lot of time and instinct and intuition. So I was being taught, and I was very blessed to have parents that are tapped into this as well at a very young age, and grew up, and I was born in the Midwest, grew up primarily in Virginia, and then really started this life of flight, traveling and teaching about 6 years ago, obviously before the pandemic. And I feel that this is something I always had inside of me, and I didn't always necessarily know what to do with, right?
Yeah.
And I remember, because in undergrad and university, I studied psychology, loved it, and then graduated from college, and I was like, well, now what? And right, because we have this societal, like, okay, this is the
order of things.
Exactly.
I did the same thing. I went to university, and I'm like, what am I doing here? This is not for me.
Right. Yes. Oh, yeah. The first time I went to university, my body was screaming, no! So I stayed there for about 3 weeks, and then I pieced out, and I took the first semester off, which was one of the best decisions I ever made. And I was very blessed to have supportive parents. My body was screaming, no, leave right now. And so that is a perfect example of your body knows, right? Your body knows what yes feels like. Your body knows. I couldn't eat. I had a stomach ache, right? I knew I wasn't supposed to be there, and I was afraid to go against the grain. Well, for about 3 weeks, and then I was like, screw this. I'm not living this way.
Oh, right? I'm so proud of you for following that, because back then I had societal pressure and my parents' pressure to continue, to get my degree, to do all those things, because that, our parents tend to evolve their lives and want a better lives for their kids. And now that I'm a parent, I want the same thing for my daughter. I want a better life for her. And so we go through that cycle, and I went to university for 5 years and then I dropped out 2 courses short of graduating because I was like, I can't do that. I cannot do this anymore. I don't love this.
Yes. I feel you. I absolutely feel you. So, I graduated from university, and I really did enjoy studying psychology. It really, and when people do come to me asking about that and can't decide what to study, well, think of something that you're going to look forward to learning about, because it's going to feed into something, right? Yes. Something. And I went to school thinking I was going to be an elementary school teacher or an art therapist or a PE teacher, right? And so it all does make sense, right? So I came back and then I started teaching preschool, and I was also starting my practice of asana, of the physical practice of yoga, because in college I actually started studying the philosophy behind it before the physical part. I really got into Buddhism, Eastern philosophy. There was a course at James Madison University that literally changed my life. Legit. I know that's quite a statement to make.
I can't.
Changed my life. Yeah.
What was it about? What was the course?
So it was a mixture of positive psychology, Eastern philosophy, metacognition, and there's one more thing. Anyhow, it absolutely changed my life. It's thinking about your thinking, right? And getting curious.
Self-awareness.
Right. And tapping into also out of the mind and into the body. So then I was asked to help teach the course for the remainder of my time at JMU, which made me realize how much I love teaching. Right. And so anyhow, I was teaching preschool, and I remember, or this was even before I started teaching preschool, I remember it was probably just a few weeks after I really regularly started practicing asana, going to studios, going to gyms. And I remember walking downstairs at my parents' house and saying, Mom, I know what I have to do with the rest of my life. I had no idea what it was going to look like, Christina. And I still don't know how it's going to continue to evolve. I know it feels right in this moment. And I will never forget that moment. And it took me a while, and then I went and taught preschool while I was getting my yoga RYT. And then after I finished that, I was like, okay, I'm going to get my elementary school teaching license. My body's like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
And you physically got ill? Like, did you, do you feel that? I do. When things are not fine with me, I get physically ill and nauseous.
So most of my life, up until about 2014, when I reclaimed my existence, I was pushing that feeling down. It was like I was living 2 lives at once.
Yes, yeah.
And I was burning the wick at both ends. I had almost nothing left because I was teaching at a school in downtown Richmond at the time, and I was teaching at multiple gyms and studios, yoga at the same time. So it's like, okay, I'm just going to do both. Right? Yeah. So there did come a time when, literally I was in a toxic relationship. I was working in a toxic work environment. And I was living in a toxic situation, and my hair was falling out of my head. I would wake up with heart palpitations all the time. I felt nauseous often. My body was screaming, are you listening? Are you listening? Are you listening? So in 2014, one promise that I did make, because I do love teaching and my babes. And at the time, I was going back and forth from DC once a month to teach a kids yoga teacher training and to essentially invite adults how to be kids again. And so I promised myself, if I leave this classroom, I am going to start yoga programs at schools all over Richmond. And that was how actually the traveling and teaching was born too, because I took this training out to Big Sky, Montana on a whim. I asked my mentor at the time, well, it's doing really great on the East Coast. How about we try it out west? And she said, I want nothing to do with it. You have my blessing. Good luck. And I said,
Okay.
who can I reach out to? Right. And that's just it. It's like this crazy feeling, right? That feels like a resounding, I can't ignore this. No. I can't ignore this. And if I don't try, it's never going to leave. And when I started to give myself time and space to listen, right? And that's part of it too, Christina, is
I know
you have a feeling, it's a seed. I see it as a seed of intuition. A seed isn't planted in the soil and go, whoop, I'm a sunflower. Right?
Totally. It doesn't work that way.
It takes time. It takes cultivation, right? And timing is a thing too. For years and years and years, I almost moved out to Montana at least 5 or 6 times.
Wow.
Right? And then 2.5 years ago, I drove into these mountains in Asheville, North Carolina for the first time.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And I still cannot put into words what I felt. There are no words. I knew I was home. 5 months later, I was living in this treehouse.
Wow.
5 months later. Never been here before, ever. Right? So that's just it. And there is no doubt in my mind, had I not been here for the past 2 years and the life situations that have been presented to me,
yep,
I don't know how I would have gotten through it. I'm exactly where I need to be, right? And it was that I will never forget. This is one of those stories, so I wanted to address, do I feel sick? So this is an example. I had 99.9% decided that I was gonna move here and I was gonna land here. And this is a big decision for me. I'd been living life on the road for about 4 years, but my home base was always in Virginia. Yep. Right? That's where my family was. That's where my roots were. So it was always back to what I know, right? This was completely different. And my father is one of my soulmates. And he's my guru. You know, I admire the man beyond words. I always say my mom is my rock and my sanctuary. My dad is my guru. They're incredible human beings. Oh my goodness. Souls in human being bodies. And I remember going over to their house because my dad wanted to, you know, look at finances, and he's also an entrepreneur. And I remember sitting at the dinner table with him and looking into his eyes, and I saw fear and I saw tears, and he was asking me over and over again, can you please just wait 6 months, maybe a year, just build a little bit more of a foundation. And looking at my father saying, Dad, I have to go. And I remember the next morning, Christina, I woke up. It was like I had a hangover. I woke up and I actually got sick. I vomited because what my body was experiencing was me even considering not going to this place where my bones knew I had to land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating? That's such a beautiful story. And I know that decision would have been very difficult for you. One of the things that always fascinates me is that we are the only species on the planet that ignores our intuition and learns to ignore our intuition. And we continue to ignore it, even though we know it's there. And we've somehow thought that we could figure out a way around it that was a better viable option for us. Right. And so many people have unplugged from that intuition, and I don't talk about it that often, but man, You know, you can hedge your bets, you can have critical thinking conversations, but when your gut says go, 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 there are decisions that we have made that I cannot explain to you. That my husband has said, Christina, we have to do this right now. And I'm like, let's do it. I just intuitively, I'm like, I trust you. I know, let's do it. And those decisions have been some of the best decisions we have ever made financially, for our souls, for everything. And when you find somebody, you know, you have your own intuition, but it can almost become a superpower when you like pair that up. And I'm not saying just with a partner, but with a coach, with somebody else who has intuition. Like when you start to surround yourself with other people, that these are the murmurs and the conversations behind, like there, you know, with my best friend, I'll message her and I'll be like, oh my God, I just had a download. This is what happened. Like, this is the message. This is the message that's coming right now. And she does the same thing to me. I'll pick up the phone and she's like, I was just thinking about you. I'm like, I know, you know, like it's those little things that we will brush off as coincidences, or maybe I have anxiety, right? Like when our body is like not feeling good, I called that anxiety, but that was me fighting my intuition on what I knew I needed to do. And so when you start living in alignment, and this is something that I want to talk about because you have taken your yoga practice on the road. I know that you have taught at festivals. Like you've created this life that you feel in total alignment, head and heart and human body. You feel in alignment here, and you get to share that gift with other people, because when it comes to your core and your happiness, nobody else can make you happy. Nobody on this planet, nobody else. You are the person that makes yourself happy. And if you're in a relationship that you think your partner makes you happy, you're in a codependent relationship. Right? And so when you realize that you are the person that creates your own happiness, if you're not happy, it's because you are not living in alignment with your purpose and who you were sent here to be. Right? And so we need people like you. And you know, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is how you created this life, but also we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, and I said, so often we count ourselves out. Intuitively, we know what we're supposed to do, but we're like, I don't have the education. I don't have the skill set. I don't have this. And we talk ourselves out of taking steps forward because we make that so complicated. Like this tiny little baby step forward, we make it so complicated, but really it's not. And so we talked a little bit about how that intuition is flowing through you. Like you were placed on this earth to do something, to be someone, to make an impact, to help others. What is that? And if you're not in alignment with that, what does that look like in your life? So can we talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing from your heart, Christina. Yes. And I wanted to share a quote that I literally, I get a couple of, you know, those quote emails in the morning. And this very much resonates with what you were just sharing. And the quote states, of course this arrived in my inbox this morning. So that's when you were describing your friend. So with because when you start living in that alignment, right, you attract other people who are as well.
Yes.
So we get change. That's crazy too, of course. So, of course, this quote by Joseph Campbell came into my presence this morning. And it says, I just got chills. It says, if you can see your path laid out in front of you, step by step, you know it's not your path. Your path you make with every step you take. That's why it's your path.
It's the stuff in between. It's the stuff in between. And you don't need to know how. You don't need to know how you were going to end up in North Carolina. You don't need to know those things. You have this vision of where you're going and you're being pulled there. And all of the other things, this conversation, connecting with people all over the world, a conversation in the grocery store, none of that is happenstance. Like that is all that is all a small step. You know, I talk about how my husband and I took a road trip down to Mexico, and on the beach, we met a young couple that worked online, and they left, and that seed, right? We talked about that seed was planted. Right. And I said to my husband that night, I said, I don't know how they're doing this, but I know that that's something that we need in our lives for leverage, for time that we're going to spend together, for, you know, to create this income, to create our lifestyle with our family. We always dreamed of having a family at home, not working away, but being at home together. We created exactly what we wanted because we had a vision and we followed our intuition, and we didn't buy into what our parents thought we should be doing. We didn't buy into what society or our friends thought we were doing. Our friends thought we were nuts, right? And it's just like, it's okay. We support you in whatever you do, right? But we're on our own path, and you can create that so much faster if you trust that feeling. And like, you can your manifestation, like, and I hesitate to use that because there's so many different ways of describing manifestation. I believe it's gratitude for where you are and extreme action towards where you're going. And if you're in alignment, that's when manifestation happens. Okay. But that can happen almost instantaneously. It took us a year to recreate our lives into what we wanted. And then we started having different visions, right? And so talk about how did you take your yoga training and then be like, you know, I really like being at festivals and connecting with people on different levels and this and that. And then you started teaching there, and like that became an income source for you. That became a community and a network for you. That became very important in your life. Yeah. Because you followed that intuition.
Right, exactly. And I very much appreciate what you're saying. And analogies really work for my brain. So to go exactly with what you're saying, the way that I think of it, and I've shared this analogy with many of my friends, is, okay, so I may have shared it with you when we had a discussion, is it connects the dots, right? So we speak of this vision, right? This overarching vision. And you think of a connect the dot picture, and there's all these dots, and it's like, okay, looks kind of like something. It's like when I came down the stairs and I said, Mom, I know what I have to do for the rest of my life. I had no idea what it looked like, but I knew what it was going to involve. I knew what my compass was going to be, right? And so with a connect the dot, we start at dot one. Dot one, okay, I am going to start a small business. I'm going to leave the teaching classroom. I'm going to teach in studios and gyms and schools all over Richmond. Okay. Dot two, ooh, I'm building quite a following, and people are asking me if I want to do one-on-one sessions. Okay, I do a lot of private yoga sessions now, and this is generating a lot more income. Dot three, yes. I have one of my private clients that says, hey, I'm really excited for our session today, and I need to talk to you about something because you're really helping me, and this needs to be an offering. We meet, and she says, do you realize what you are providing me is life coaching? And I'm like, huh, what? So like, oh, okay, now I have to do something. Well, I don't have to do anything. Now I choose to do something with this. This leads to life coaching. And, you know, so on and so on. And like I told you with the kids yoga teacher training, it's like, all right, traveling brings me joy. How can I incorporate this into my dharma, right? So I have this teacher training. I have connections in Montana. What if I ask on a whim my mentor if I take this out there? And she says yes. And I say, oh, okay. Right?
Like, and that was easy.
Right. I have another friend who's living in a tent lodge in an island off of Panama that says, hey, I'm going to connect you with my friend who wants to lead yoga retreats. Oh, I guess I'm leading retreats now too. It's not always about the doing. We are enculturated. I mean, yes, sometimes doing is required. So, for example, I arrive in these mountains. Okay, I'm not going to be moved into a new home by sitting back and twiddling my thumbs. So it's like, okay, I show up, I listen, I pay attention. The next dot becomes clear. Then you do something about it, right? Okay, that feels good. Show up, pay attention. Next dot becomes clear. I'm going to do something about it or not, right? And that's when we tap into this intuition of what feels yes, what feels expansive, what feels no. And sometimes this can be a little tricky, right? Because, oh my gosh, I'm going to do what? I'm going to uproot and leave everything I know and move? I mean, that feels a little scary. And it feels scary in an expansive way, right? It's like the Anais Nin quote, and the day came when the risk to remain tightly enclosed in a bud was greater than the risk that it took to blossom, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think of it, I connect the dots one dot at a time. And we want to get things done though. We want to know what it looks like now, right? So this is an unlearning, right? And it's actually a huge relief once you start tapping into the fact that you don't and you cannot figure it all out. There are 3 questions that I ask every single morning as I complete my, prayers, mantras, whatever you want to call them. It's from A Course of Miracles. And 3 questions are universe, God, tree, mountain, however you want to look at it. Where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to whom? I am listening.
I love that. What a powerful way to start your morning. What a powerful, it's so interesting because before we got on our live today, I have a sticky note in my office that says set an intention. And so before I got on live with you, I set the intention and I said, look, I need to be here for those that need this message. Please allow those who need to see it be here. And hear us speak and hear our wisdom from the stuff that we've had to overcome, the challenges that we've had. Be there and be open and let those people have the message that we have for them today. And it doesn't see how it wasn't as concise and direct as you, but when you are constantly in your life and you're like, okay, so like my intention at dinner tonight is to connect with my family. It doesn't have to be so, it can be part of your life and my intention when I go for coffee with my friend is to connect with her and make her feel supported. Right. And so I encourage people to eat. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to say the right thing or the wrong thing or whatever. It's setting the intention and being present in that moment and realizing there are no coincidences. People that are brought into your life. And like you said, you have a choice. Yes or no. Yes or no, yes or no. And there are times where you have to choose no. And it's important to say no. But there are so many times that we don't say yes and we talk ourselves out of it because of an intuition and because of that growth spot, that sticky spot that we're like, is it less painful to stay closed tightly in a bud, or is it less painful to blossom and grow? What is less painful, right? Because pain, people do things for 2 reasons, pain or pleasure. And often it's to avoid pain. So I love what you said about that and how, you really don't have to know. You can think of the grand version of yourself, but you don't have to know the in-between. If you would have asked me 5 years ago, if I'd be doing this, I would have laughed in your face. I would have been like, no, I didn't see this happening. I didn't see it at all. And people underestimate, they grossly they overestimate what they can get done in a year. They're like, I can do this, I can crush this. And then they beat themselves up for not, but they grossly underestimate what they can do in 10. And so if you look back on the last 10 years of your life, where you were 10 years ago, I would bet to differ that you wouldn't guess that you were right here, right now. Like you wouldn't have been able to see the picture of your life as it is right now. No, right? Right? No. And so when we think about it that way, you stop getting hung up on where you're going, how you're going to get there, what's happening, and you put one foot in front of the other today. Today, my conversation is with you. What am I learning from this conversation? The 1% thing that is going to make me better for tomorrow. Right? What am I picking up and pulling into my life and teaching other people to help them? What am I doing to further my dream? And hey, maybe nothing's coming right now, but I'm going to sit in silence until it does, because especially as moms, we don't take the time. We put everybody else before ourselves. We put our families, our kids, everything. And we don't take that time for quiet. And I finally, after 37 years of my life, when I'm tired or I feel anxious and I want to figure out why I feel anxious, I'm like, sorry, honey, you got the kid. I need 15 minutes by myself to recalibrate and to take some time for me. And he's like, you know, I really appreciate that you've recognized that now. Instead of being spun up and getting mad and angry and whatever happens in the interim, take that 15 minutes or 20 minutes to yourself and just deep breathe. And I'm telling you, the intuition comes. All of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm mad about this. Oh, maybe it's not about this. Maybe it's about this. And all of a sudden, and that's also the reason that I don't fight things out. I take a time out whenever there's a heated discussion, because I want to get to the root of what my emotion is. It's not what's on the surface. It's never what's on the surface. And it goes both ways. In your happiness, you know, if you're not innately connected to your core values and what you want as a human being. So for example, like we think, oh, I want money, I want a family, I want a partnership, I want whatever. But what do you want at your core? Because it took me 30 years to figure out I needed my personal freedom and I wanted to make an impact. And that is it. The personal freedom and impact. Doesn't matter about my marriage, my kids, my family. Like it does. It enriches my life. But at the core, if I don't have those two things, if I'm not doing those two things, I'm not happy. And I have some sort of anxiety, which my therapist calls unfelt feelings.
That's really powerful. Unfelt feelings.
That's what anxiety is. She's like, it's not anxiety. It is unfelt feelings. So which of these feelings are you feeling right now? And I'm like, oh, I really have to dive into this.
Yes. Yeah, it requires. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing.
I would love for you to share, you know, like you work with a lot of different people and help them find their path. I know a lot of people struggle. Not only we say fear of failure is the biggest fear, but truly, I think, and maybe you disagree that, and which is fine, that it's not the fear of failure. We as humans are curious. We want to try new things. It's the fear of it not working out and somebody judging us for it. A parent, a friend, a family member, social media. And so people are scared to take that chance, even though they may be pulled that way. What would my parents think? What would my coworkers think? What would my, you know, like all of those things. And so I would love to just have we'll wrap it up. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I would love to hear a little bit about, you know, when people come in and they start talking that way, like what do you, pivot to, like how do you get them to see a different perspective when they're holding on that factor that, hey, I know I'm being pulled to do this, but I'm just so scared.
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know, I don't have the power to make anyone do anything. However, when people come to me expressing what you're sharing, okay, I have this passion inside of me and I'm terrified, right? It makes sense. It totally makes sense. So I don't tell them to do anything. I reflect back to them. And something that I reflect, because I still experience this, is when we have something we're passionate about, we don't want to mess it up. Right. There is this, like you said, call it fear of failure. You know, if we're clocking into a 9 to 5 and we don't give too many.
Yeah, totally. It's not a big deal.
Right. Exactly. So I actually have this term that I call, I don't want to curse on here because.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
I do all the time.
Is that allowed? Yeah. Okay, cool. So when we give so many fucks, it paralyzes us.
Totally.
So what I like to call this is fuck pruning, right? Because think about a tree, right? Nature is such an exquisite teacher. So trees teach us the importance of fuck pruning, right? Think about if the trees never shed their leaves. They would suffocate. They would be overcome with leaves. They would just be giant green poof balls, right?
Yeah.
So, okay.
I love your analogies, by the way.
It really worked for my brain. My dad grew up telling me stories, so stories and analogies really, really work.
I love
So
it.
a tree, it doesn't like be like, hey, I'm done with you, leaf, bam, right? The tree knows when it's time to release. There's no having to convince, right? And I gave the example of having that conversation with my dad, right, before really making the decision to come to this place where I knew I needed to be. And it required a lot of exactly what you're talking about, Christina, getting quiet, activating parasympathetic nervous system, calm, and getting really clear. And so I like to think of it as like, okay, short term versus long term. All right, I can placate and make everyone else happy around me, right? I'm also an Enneagram 2. I'm the helper. So I spent most of my life doing that. I'm very familiar. I'm a recovering codependent. Thank you, Mark Groves. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's amazing. Anyways, I'm sparkling all over the place now. So getting super clear, short term. All right, this is a Band-Aid. This is another Band-Aid. This is another Band-Aid. What happens if we continue to put a Band-Aid over a wound that's festering? Ooh, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we got to open it up, dig around a little bit to clean it out. It's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But long term, what's going to happen? You're going to heal finally.
And not have to live that way anymore.
Exactly. So if you want a Band-Aid, short term, continued discomfort and continued moments of comfort, stay in the bud, right?
Yeah.
If you're ready to, and remember, it's slow. It's not like, right, tree, sunflower grows, right? It's gonna be a slow process. Long term, this is the path to your deepest healing.
Yes, absolutely.
Your listening
so well said.
is your healing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. It is so important. Growth is uncomfortable. Growth and healing, it is painful.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I know a lot of people don't want to run towards it. They don't want to rush in and face all of the things that scare them, that make them, feel fearful or shameful or angry or ashamed. They don't want to do that. But I've learned, oh gosh, so much in the last 5 years. And you can't help other people from an open wound. Right? There are people that live their entire lives with an open wound and they die with an open wound. And that's just how it is, because it was for them easier and less painful than facing it and healing. That's the hard work that you got to sign up for, right? But I can tell you, on the other side of that, when you are able to heal that gaping wound into a scar, you can teach from a scar and connect from a scar and show vulnerability from a scar.
Oh, yeah.
That is so powerful for other people, because they know that you've been through what they have to go through or they're going through, and you give them hope. You give them hope. So if you want to look at, I get like, so you can tell I get like teary-eyed when I like talk about stuff like this, because it is so innately ingrained in me. And there are a lot of things that I've had to overcome to get to this point where I can talk about it. I have PTSD from bullying. I have PTSD from traumatic events in my life that are triggered sometimes on a daily basis. I used to be a vocalist. I went to university for vocal jazz, actually. And there are moments that I cannot sing to a song in the car that I break down in tears, because I feel like my voice was taken. I literally feel like my voice was taken from me. And that's a PTSD reaction. Now, I could go the rest of my life. I'm going to be honest, I have a beautiful singing voice. It's something that I was praised for as a child, and something that I didn't continue down because I didn't have people that believed that I could do it. I didn't have people. I had people in my life that wanted me to play it safe because they wanted me to be safe. But it wasn't who I was. And those people were family and friends and people that I loved because they wanted to keep me safe, and it was with good intention.
Of
But when you've
course.
got this intuition inside of you that you have to work through, sometimes you got to face your demons, because I want to be able to help people in that way. And one day, there are moments that my daughter sings now. She's 4.5 and she's in singing lessons, and
Oh.
she's so cute. She loves it. And there's moments that she wants to sing in the car with me, and it almost crushes me. Like, I can't even get the words out to sing with her without like bursting into tears, because I know that, like, of joy, by the way, of joy, because I know that I'll raise her in a way that you want to go after that. You want to do it. I will put you in front of the best people. I will support that dream for you with everything I have. And
Mm.
so if we can encourage our parents and our friends to have these conversations, and we can learn something, we can be open to the conversation. Yes, some people are going to see intuition on this title and they're going to scroll right past the video. But that wasn't the person that I sent the intention to see this video today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
attachment.
it's really coming from that place of, hey, like, there are all these outside factors, and there are things that you're going to have to overcome. If I don't face the hard stuff, if I don't innately work through this pain point of mine, I may never sing again. I may never sing in front of other people. I may never, you know what I mean? And that would be such joy sucked from me, from
Mm.
something I love and enjoy.
Mm.
And so how do I want to live halfly through the rest of my life, that's okay with me, and I'll just never sing again?
Mhm.
Or, and isn't that interesting how it shows up in physical symptoms? Like, it
Oh
shows
yeah.
up like that so powerfully. And I just thought, for
Mhm.
years I had shame because I thought I wasn't as good as everybody else, and I was just very shameful of how I didn't measure up to everybody else. And
Mhm.
that's was, like, I didn't want to sing in front of people. I didn't want to do it
Right.
anymore because I didn't think I was good enough.
Mhm.
And that was projections from other people that I had to learn and overcome. So sometimes you learn this, sometimes you've got great parents like you, and you learn intuition when you're a
Mhm.
kid.
Yeah.
Sometimes you go through blindly and wake up one day after doing many, many years of personal development and struggling, and you're like, wait a second,
Mm.
I don't have to live life this way. I can live it this way.
Mhm.
And that's
Mhm.
why we have conversations like this. And there are people like
Mhm.
you in the world to guide
Mhm.
people to connect the dots.
Mm.
So thank you
And
so
you
much
as
for being
well.
here. I
Thank
really
you,
appreciate you.
Christina. Mirror, absolute mirror, and yes, I had incredible parents as guides, and they continue to teach me, right? And in ways that I see them as guides, and also ways that I now see them as imperfect. And
Of
that's
course,
beautiful,
because they're
right?
human.
Hmm.
Because
Right,
they're human.
exactly. Yeah, so I'm still learning. I am still learning how to listen. It's a practice, right? It's not like, oh, I got this. All right, my intuition pencil is sharpened. I'm good to go. Every single day is a practice,
Absolutely.
right? hmm Yeah. So,
Oh, thank
and
you.
yeah, you're so welcome, Christina. Thank you. I really am so honored to be in this space and share this conversation with you. And yeah, thank you for listening to your knowing that led you to reach out.
I appreciate you. I'm so happy that we connected, and I know that that this is just kind of the beginning of our relationship and getting to know each other.
Yes.
And I'm
Yes.
I'm grateful that you were here and vulnerable and shared, because
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that we connected with the people that we needed to today, or the people that are watching this right now, or the people
Mm-hmm.
that need to see it. So
Yes,
thank you so
absolutely.
much. I appreciate you. I hope you have an amazing day, and hopefully we can do this again soon sometime.
Yes, please. I would love to.
Amazing. Thank you. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.